Hey guys, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be updated every time I make a new video. Thanks, let's begin. It's an allegory for what could have happened and somewhat kind of did. Bats out of hell. This is the 1978 short novel or novella from Guy N. Smith. And this is also my 10th episode of my Guy N. Smith files. We're in the double digits, people. The plot. It was an accident. A slew of bats are released from their confined cage and are now roaming the English countryside. The man responsible not only feels pressure of having to stop these tiny terrors from inadvertently creating a global pandemic, but the grief of the thousands of people that will perish from the deadly disease they carry. The problem with something like Bats Out of Hell is that you have to pretty much shut your brain off, as much as the characters do. They come to conclusions way too late into the game, and discover things that I found to be pretty obvious. The big one being the fact that they didn't think they would carry a virus or that it would affect humans, so they kind of were just like, it's fine, they're gone, whatever. And they spread a frickin' plague. How narrow-minded does someone have to be? There's also a revelation for one of the characters, and it was in front of their face the whole time. It's reminded me of the discovery Cliff Davenport uncovered in Night of the Crabs. Actually, it's just like that. When all else fails and everything seems hopeless, here's the answer. It's a final attempt that miraculously works. Still, the book is written straightforward with very little getting in the way of the story, which is a breath of fresh air when coming off of Killer Crabs, which was way too bloated. Bats Out of Hell focuses on scenarios and set pieces for the bats to inhabit. Places like a church and a stadium. The bats form a black cloud of fangs and wings to descend upon hapless innocents. However, during the stadium scene, it involves a political figure trying to rile up a group of followers to step in and stop the government from keeping them all basically trapped in the vicinity. It could have gotten a lot worse and relevantly topical, but, you know, bats. There's also a family trying to head to Shrewsbury before shit goes down. Once in a car and the other on foot. However, they're stopped, not able to leave. There's no escaping the bats and the disease they carry. For the characters, we have Brian Newman, who is a professor that has a lot of bad qualities. Beyond unintentionally releasing the bats, he is seeing two women that we know of, and is even abusive at one point. Talk about a stand-up guy. You do have to try and sympathize with him, and it is written in a way that may make it seem like all is forgotten and forgiven, and we can move on. However, this man deals with more than just grief and depression. He's got those anger issues and sexual drive. Well, that always makes for a bad combo. The ending does make you feel sad, though. No matter any amount of victory can undo what has already been done. Susan Wiley is the assistant to Brian Newman. And of course, they're seeing each other. And she doesn't put up with his ways at first, but after the bats are out of the building, it's like, oh well. He claims he was going to sleep with another woman, but didn't because he wanted to be with her. Wow! Who would have thought you were supposed to not do that? And not to mention the damage is already done because he slept with her before Susan convinced him unintentionally not to. Susan becomes the housewife making tea and supper and offering very little to the story after that besides moral support. The tragedy of it all comes in the form of the ending. I won't spoil. The character of Haynes funded the project from the beginning. He is always there but offers very little, bringing in other scientists to try to figure out what to do. Like Professor Rickers, who was the first one called in. Then there's Professor Talbot, who is young, slim, and practically unknown in the bacteriologist field, is nevertheless brought in by John Strictly's recommendation. Now, Strictly is a bacteriologist with bushy eyebrows, glasses that make his eyes look big, and a mustache. He is described in a way that reminds me of Milton from Office Space.
I believe you have my antidote.
So the characters are mostly unlikable, but what else does this book have to offer? It's got some creepiness to it. There is no point of view for the bats. They're just a mindless bunch. However, when they attack, it gets rather horrific. Not even in terms of gore. The bats are just ruthless and violent. They attack anything and anyone they can. Animals, humans, buildings, nothing is safe. There's a scene in a bank where the bank owner locks his employees in the bank because a bat is in there. And several of them die as a result. He gets his comeuppance though, but not by a bat, a rat that was infected by the bats. Ratatouille killed him.
You rat!
There's even some explosive action in this book. A helicopter crop dusting the fields and area where the bats were with pesticides is taken down by the bats. It is swarmed and then it crashes into the ground. It's quite the horrific mental visual. Bats swarming an entire aircraft, making it crash in a heap of fire and metal framework. It's ghastly. Oh, and don't think citizens take this sitting either. There are no less than 2 encounters of Newman being stalked or bombarded with people trying to kill him. One is a mob trying to break into his bungalow for some mob justice, I guess. They almost kill him. The other is a lone gunman avenging the death of his family. It's some hard-hitting stuff. For the gore, there is nothing much. There are some bloody bites, but it never gets too extreme. The bodies littering the streets and the mass execution are both disturbing enough where we don't really even need gore. For the proposed film score, James Gosling, who composed The Hallow, could bring a somewhat bombastic, yet intense musical identity to a film production of this book. Songs like The Snatch off the Hallow soundtrack, I feel, would fit right at home in the stadium attack. It starts off in your face, but gives you time to breathe. I could picture the political figure behind a box seat viewing's glass, seeing all this, in awe of the insane sight he beholds. What have I done? Overall, this one's alright. It works as being a cautionary tale with great repercussions by the end. Not great as in good, but great as in serious or bad. Not only did the environment and the animals inhabiting it get destroyed by chemical warfare with the bats, but 10,000 plus people died. It sometimes gets a bit hard to read because of the relevance to COVID. Still, it makes for a hell of a story of a disturbing pulp, with more edge than one might expect from Guy Smith at this point in his career. And also, in May of 2020 or 2021, I had COVID. So I figured it's May now, 2023. Let's get under my skin. Overall, I give Bats Out of Hell a 2 out of 5. Very, very close to a 2.5, but not quite. Thank you all for watching, and I am Brian Gatto, the Horror Shark, and I'm just giving the usual shoutouts to my Patreon supporters. If you would like to support me on Patreon or join the channel as a member, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. If you want to join the channel as a member, hit the join button under the video. Both have similar perks. You'll get early access to videos, shoutouts, as well as even some collaborations depending on how much you give a month. Join us! Also, make sure to hit that notification bell to be notified every time I make a new video. And as always, subscribe!